All right, guys, so here we are back in chapter 10 talking about it's all about differential analysis, but let's keep it plain and simple. Let's talk about how do we go about making decisions and looking at the just the financial impact of two different actions or decisions, right? So differential analysis is also known as incremental analysis, but you're in a nutshell looking at the financial impact of two alternative courses of action. So if I choose this decision, then what would be the effect of not choosing something else, right? So again, in a prior video, we talked about community college versus a four-year university, and what was maybe the financial impact of that decision, right? So anyways, that's what we're going to continue with now. So you can have differential revenue, and differential revenue is the amount of increase or decrease in revenue that is expected from a course of action compared to an alternative. So again, hey, and we're going to go through a really good example about a salad bar versus keeping tables. So we'll see really quickly how differential revenue and differential cost and subsequently differential income or loss has an effect on comparing two alternatives, okay? So with that, let's start with maybe this restaurant. So I've never been to this beautiful restaurant that you see on the screen, but let's imagine it's down somewhere on the pier or something like that, right? And it's beautiful, and you walk in, you can smell the sea breeze, and it's just an upscale restaurant, things of that nature. So imagine you're the owner of this beautiful restaurant, and the way things have been gone pre-COVID-19, right? But one of the biggest things at the time was brunch, right? And so for some reason, there's a huge wave when it comes to brunch. So much so that so many people, instead of having brunch on maybe a Sunday, many restaurants started extending it to Saturday, right? So Saturday and Sunday from maybe, I don't know, 10 to 2, it will be brunch, right? And mimosas and things like that. So now imagine this is again your restaurant and this is your current seating, right? So you at this time do not have brunch, but you're considering maybe bringing that as part of maybe a new venture or an opportunity. So this is the current seating arrangement. And because again, brunch is so popular right now, you're thinking about putting in a salad bar or something of that nature. Again, you're trying to draw in a different crowd or group of people or take advantage of the brunch wave, right? Business opportunity. Now you realize that if you decide to put in this salad bar, that means that you'll have to give up some of the seating. So if I can write on the screen for a second, I'm not exactly sure maybe where you would put it, but my guess is if you decide to put in a salad bar, you will have to take out this section that's in red to accommodate, or maybe it's a little bit less, but you're gonna have to take out this seating to accommodate for this salad bar that we have here, right? And so now you're trying to decide, hey, is it worth me putting this salad bar in? Is the profit or this decision worth it? Because if I take out seating, that means less people are able to sit down, right? So as a manager or supervisor or the owner of this restaurant, you have to make the financial decision whether to move forward with leaving the tables as is or taking the seating out in this particular area to replace it with a salad bar to now attract a different crowd, okay? All right, so let's continue going with this example. Now, when we're talking about differential analysis, there is 3 columns that we need to consider, okay? So the analysis is prepared in 3 different columns. The positive indicates income or revenue of the decision. The negative indicates the cost or decrease in income, right? So the first column, if I can draw on here, this first column represents the original, what's already there, right? Alternative number 1 represents what's currently there, which is the tables, right? So that one is probably the easiest one to calculate because you already have financial or you already have data points to come up with this information. So you can recognize the revenue that you already have in your the revenue that you already have, the costs associated with maybe those tables in that area, and then your income or loss. Now, alternative number 2, which is the second column, represents, again, plan B, or what you're considering, right? The alternative. And so you're saying that if you was to put in a salad bar, you would expect a revenue of 120,000, but the cost associated with putting that salad bar in would be a cost of 65,000. But overall, your income or loss would be 55,000. Now, the third column represents the differential effect, basically the comparison, the calculation of it. Now, when you do this calculation in column number 3, the way it works is it's alternative number 2 minus alternative number 1, right? So it means you're having 120,000 in revenue less 100,000. And that's how you come up with 20,000, right? And then for the cost, you have a negative 65,000 minus a minus 60,000. Now, if you learn this part like me, if you have a minus and a minus, they become pluses, right? So then your overall amount is a negative 5,000. So in looking at this alternative, if you were the manager, owner of this restaurant, which one do you decide to go with? Do you keep the tables, or do you replace it with the salad bar? Now, in looking at this, if I am the owner of this restaurant, it is clear to me to go with option or alternative number 2. And it is clear to go with alternative number 2, or the salad bar, because by replacing the tables with the salad bar, I increase my overall income by a total of $15,000. Okay, so that's enough for me to make that change. Okay, so that is in a nutshell how differential analysis work. Okay, so again, I kind of alluded to this earlier, got ahead of myself, but when you're looking at differential revenue, cost, and income, it's always alternative number 2 minus alternative number 1 for revenue, and then the same for cost and income. Okay. Now, before we move on to all of the different types of differential analysis that we can do, I want to make sure I notate some really key points. So number 1 is when we're making a decision between alternatives, we must most times we go through a series of questions, such as what's the objective? What are the alternatives? And then we try to gather and support what the resources are. We try to gather and support information to support our decision. And then usually we make a decision, and then after that, we analyze the after effects, right? So right now, when we're looking at creating the salad bar, replacing the salad bar with, replacing the tables with the salad bar, we were projecting the revenue for the salad bar. We didn't know at the time, because again, you don't know that you'll make that type of revenue, but maybe you're doing a comparison from other restaurants and things of that nature. But what's really important here is after the change or alternative number 2 is implemented, it's important to go back and revise and look at your actual numbers to make sure that they line up with what you have predicted, right? Because the last thing you want to do is say, okay, well, I have this salad bar, but it's really losing me, making me lose money versus making money, okay? So again, the process when making a decision is we go through a series of steps. Number 1 is what's the objective? And maybe in this case is to make more money as the owner. And then we look at what's the alternative. So either keep the tables or replace it with a salad bar. Then we gather support to make a decision. So maybe our tables, we already have that data. But as far as the salad bar, maybe we're taking that from some statistics online, from friends, things of that nature. Then we make a decision between the alternatives. And then after it's all done and implemented, we go back and analyze to see if there's any gaps in between what we thought. Okay. All right. So before I'm going to start a new video, but in that new video, or just to introduce this idea here is there can be differential analysis for a myriad of different things, or when trying to make a decision for a business. And so some of those things are leasing or selling equipment, discontinuing an unprofitable segment, manufacturing or purchasing a needed part, replacing fixed assets, selling a product or processing it further, or accepting additional business at a special price. And so we're going to go through each of these, and I'm going to give you an example of how this all works, and we're going to work through problems, okay? So I